If you go to the official website of Knott's Berry Farm, then you will see them stating that they are California's first theme park. Quite the accomplishment considering that it started out as a literal berry farm. I am not kidding. The owner of the farm, Walter Knott, created the boysenberry. This farmer didn't stop creating there, however. One more major creation he contributed to were the haunt events that many theme parks throw every Halloween season. In 1972, a late-night TV host named Seymour, master of the macabre, and his agent picked up the phone and called Knott's Berry Farm. They asked the entertainment director, Bill Hollingshead, about putting on a Halloween-themed show at the park. Bill Hollingshead loved the idea, and this got the gears turning and employees talking about throwing a full-on Halloween event at the park, complete with employed monsters running around and scaring people. Now that's a dream job. At first, the Knott family was negative against the idea, but Walter Knott himself gave the green light, and the rest was history. The event came to be called Knott's Scary Farm's Halloween Haunt, and the first addition to the event was in 1973. Instead of the nearly 30-night season that we're used to getting, the first haunt only took place over 3 nights, but continued to grow into the month-and-a-half-long extravaganza that we know today. In 2013, I attended the event for the first time with my friends, and again in 2014. Then, after a 4-year absence, I returned to Knott's Scary Farm with a desire to adventure and experience all their mazes and rank them from my least favorite to favorite. Today I make that a reality, and what better day to do so? After all, Halloween's today. Okay everyone, so this ranking list is going to be unique. I don't want to just rank all the Scary Farm mazes from least to best, I want to make it into a tournament kind of event. This way I can keep you all on your toes and make you wonder when your favorite maze will be ranked and if it will become defending champion, at least in my mind. So how this tournament works is I will pull a number from 2 to 9 out of a hat. The reason I only put 2 to 9 is because I want to save my number 1 spot for the very end since it's owned that privilege. With that being said, I hope I can keep you all guessing and entertained for the duration of this video. If you have any different opinion than mine, which you probably will, then I would love to hear your opinions in the comments and communicate with you. Who knows, maybe you can convince me that a maze I ranked lowly is better than it was. After all, talking about haunt events is fun. But beware, I'll only reply to respectful comments. Alright, let's play. Well, as fortune would have it, I just so happened to pull out number 9 as the first call. So let's kick things off with my least favorite maze, the depths. You see, I saw Jaws for the first time when I was 6, and it traumatized me to the point that I won't go any more than ankle deep into the ocean to this day. As I grew older, I came to respect the movie, and became fascinated by movies about sea monsters, so when I first heard about the depths at Knott's, I was on both. Unfortunately, most of the skill actors were on break the first time I went in it, which made the majority of the maze boring to me. The worst part was that I always seemed to catch this maze when all the skill actors were on break. Nothing against the skill actors, by the way, I understand it was out of their control. Things didn't stop there though. Every time I went down in the depths, I just couldn't get that excited. I feel like the section of the maze where they made it seem like you're wading through water was ruined by the obvious green lights and lines against the walls they created. The cherry on top is the elevator show sequence at the beginning of the maze. Now I appreciate what Knott was trying to do, but the cons far outweigh the pros for it. First off, it slowed the line way down when they used it. Also, I don't think they used it to its full potential. All you did was go down in the elevator and the miner operating it escorted you out. Wouldn't this room have been perfect for a first big scale? Imagine the miner taking off their mask to reveal that they're one of the creatures, or maybe have someone pop out of the box-like object in the middle of the room. I will always give a maze another chance, and I do feel like if the creators of the depths can change a few minor details, then this maze could contend for being one of my future favorites. Moving on now, the next number I put out of my hat was number 5, which to me was Dark Ride. That's right, that terrifying Wicked Witch animatronic from Snow White's Scary Adventure at Disneyland finally got to me. Okay, all jokes set aside, Dark Ride is my number 5, but if I'm being honest, it almost became dead last, at least after the first time I went through it. The first time I went into Dark Ride was similar to the first time I went through the depths. Many of the scare actors were on break, so the only thing that really scared me was thinking the Hall of Mirrors was going to be longer and harder to get through. Luckily, it wasn't. The year was 2019, and Knott's added 2 new rooms into this maze. First, there was the control room, which was a fun addition, and made even better by the red button on the control console. You see, if you push the red button, then it should set off an alarm, and sometimes signal a skill actor to pop out at you. The second new room was the gift shop, but it was too small. I didn't even notice it the first time I went through, which is a problem because it's currently the very last room of the maze. Sadly, they tease us too, because in the gift shop they have a fake advertisement for a t-shirt about the ride the maze is based on, but they don't have it as official merchandise. The good news for Dark Ride is that every other time I went in it, I had a fun time. The skill actors were on point and working their butts off. The effects were decent, and the gift shop scene improved when I noticed that they show a picture of you being scaled on the same monitor they advertised the t-shirt for. Also, let me just say that I do think the best part of Dark Ride is the finale. Actually, I think Dark Ride has the best finale of all the mazes. Just walking into that vast room at the end and seeing an army of clowns walking around and all setting their sights on you is extremely intimidating. Almost like it's the final level of a scary video game. Before moving on to the next maze, I would like to add that I've also created trophies for the mazes. I didn't want to bring this up when discussing the depths because I didn't want to get anyone's hopes up, only to dash them. Dark Ride has won 2 trophies from me. After that last one I made, it's only fitting that I give this maze the best finale trophy, and also the most improved award since it did do good enough to jump up 4 whole spaces on my list. Now moving on to my next maze, it seems like we're never going to get to any even numbers on this list because I pulled number 3 out of my hat. Although, you know, I'm okay with that because we're traveling to my favorite country on earth, Japan! Oh, wait, hang on. It seems I've made a mistake. We're not traveling to Japan, we're traveling to Japan's Purgatory. Purgatory. You know, that place that isn't supposed to be as bad as hell, but according to all the depictions, is still as bad as hell. Also known as the Shadowlands! That's right, Shadowlands wins the bronze medals from me for the 2009 season, which I'm really happy about because Shadowlands 1 at Knott has come to an end. If Shadowlands proves anything to me, it's that a skill actor can live on in your memory if they show how truly dedicated they are. The first time I walked into Shadowlands, some of the skill actors were on break. However, the ones who won't poured their entire soul into picking up the slack in the slow areas. Some actors would move around sporadically in their respective rooms and keep finding new ways to skill all the guests, including the ones they had already skilled. The intensity of the skill actors continued to increase for the rest of the season. No matter what was happening, they worked so hard to make their maze the best it could be. Other than the amazing skill actors, there was also the atmosphere of the maze. The animatronics were scary and disturbing enough to keep me entertained in the empty rooms, and the music was tranquil and calm, yet still managed to immerse me into the universe of the maze. I'm not too sure about this, but I think the first room that starts off the maze is based off the suicide forest in Japan, which immediately brought a feeling of hopelessness over me. Because that's the vibe I got from it, on top of all the promotions saying you were wandering through purgatory. That means there truly is no hope for you as you fight off the demon samurai, because you're already dead. The only real issue I can address with Shadowlands is that it was slow occasionally. However, given everything I've already said, I'm willing to overlook it. Shadowlands takes home the bronze medal for its homeland of Japan, but it also takes the hopelessness away, because what's the point of trying to stay alive when you're dead and walking through purgatory? We've gone from the bronze medal to the silver, as I just pulled number 2 out of my hat. Now, I suppose it really says something about the maze as my number 1, because my number 2 maze is the only maze to actually scale me in real life, and it still didn't take home the gold. Not taking anything away from number 2 though, because, like I said, it's the only maze to scale me in real life. So please, for the love of all that is good, avoid the cauldron of boiling hot wax. The first time I went through wax ropes was amazing, pun slightly intended. I was last in line, and after seeing the promos for the maze, I intentionally slowed down, separated myself from the pack, and took a few seconds to really soak in the atmosphere, and observe the wax figures. I was trying to see if any skill actors had been dressed up and positioned to make it look like they had actually been turned into statues. Sadly, they never added that effect in the maze, at least for its first year, so I hope they will add that in this year. The good news is that the skill actors are on fire, or should I say, on boiling wax. Now, on second thought, forget I said that. On fire sounds better. But yeah, every time I went in, the monsters were getting everybody. I remember one time I was walking through and this monster girl jumped out from behind the bookcase at me and I almost fell over from shock. The atmosphere of the maze was dark and unsettling, and so much detail went into the maze. Now that I think about it, it's the most detail put into any maze during the 2019 season. I also need to mention the line. Yes, I know that sounds weird because why would I judge a maze based on its lines, but I have to because of everything they put into it. I just mentioned how much detail went into the maze itself. Well, it started at the line. They had TVs talking about the history of the Wax Museum and Dr. Scratch himself. They also had live skill actors dressed for the maze in particular, interacting with the guests. To top it all off, the devil head on top of the entrance actually talked, literally with its mouth moving. Only one other maze at Knott's that I will get into in a little bit tried so many things to keep its guests entertained while standing in line, but I feel like Waxworks just did it a little better. Now, you're probably wondering what I meant when I said that Waxworks is the only maze to actually scare me in real life. Also, it's come to my attention that the way I put it earlier may sound like I said I got boned by the cauldron of wax. Before anyone tells me to sue the park in the comments, I would like to clarify that I didn't get boned. The real reason I got legitimately scared was because I was carrying my souvenir cup with me through the maze and enjoying my night of free refills. That is until I walked past the cauldron and it spilled whatever the liquid inside it, which was cold by the way, onto my cup. I was so afraid to take a drink for the rest of the night that I didn't. Luckily, I learned the week after that the very friendly employees at Knott's will wash your cup for free if you need them to. By the way, thank you for that, good people at Knott's. The only negative thing I have to say about Waxworks is that I really wish they could have found a way to dress the skill actors up to make it look like they had literally been turned into statues. I honestly feel like Waxworks could have even topped or at least traded places again and again with my number one had they added in the effect. Waxworks wins 2 trophies. It wins the Best Line Award and also the How of a Fight Award, because I felt like it truly was a fight for survival at times when trying to escape the art. We are moving on to number 8. Fitting because zombie movies usually come in at number 8 in the box office, and at my number 8 you have every zombie movie known to man. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Alright, I'm just kidding. That is not a factual statement I just made, it was a complete joke. Okay, the box office fault was. However, if Special Ops Infected was your favorite maze, don't worry, I loved it. Unfortunately, at first, I ended up making this my default number 9 because I mostly base mazes on fear factor, and due to the fact that you have a gun to defend yourself with, fear factor is kind of thrown out the window for making you feel like an action hero. With that being said, this maze did have good things going for it, enough to move it up to 1 on my list. I mean, I like playing games like Call of Duty and Guilds of War, so it was fun when I did get to go through it. Fun fact about me, one of my hobbies is running, so when I got to run through the maze and mow down zombies with lasers, I felt like an action hero. The worst part about Infected was the line. It was so slow and tedious. Seriously, if Waxworks' line is heaven, then Special Ops is hell. They kept playing the same 2 to 3 news videos over and over again, even when guests had been stuck in line for an hour and a half to 2 hours at times. Couldn't they have made a few more news videos, as well as have some of the actors explain how to use the guns to us while we were in line, as well as maybe have a small section of the line be dedicated to target practice like it was a shooting range, as well as maybe have a zombie come running out to attack the guests only to get shot dead by a soldier every now and then? At least that's all the things I would have tried to add into the line. Honestly, that's pretty much it for Special Ops. Since I only went through it twice, I am sad to see it go, but we need something new there. If anyone at Knott's is watching, then please don't get me wrong. I love the concept of using guns to turn a maze into a first-person shoot-'em-up game. So much so that despite being at number 8, I'm still giving Special Ops Infected the award for best concept. Hopefully we can bring it back eventually to a new maze, or maybe even a current maze that could really benefit from it. One of which I will address shortly, and I think most Scary Film fans know which one I'm talking about. Before we go any further, I would like to take a moment to tell you more about the history of this event. You see, long before Walter Knott made the decision to start Scary Film, something horrible happened in the Old West town of Calico. Resembling the Salem witch trials, a lady named Sarah Marshall, not that one, was accused of being a witch and sentenced to be hanged by the neck. However, before she could be hanged, she used her magic to curse the entire town and disappeared. Soon after, many of the townspeople became sick and turned into hideous monsters that attacked the outer citizens. The town became a ghost town after that, and the very first scare zone at a haunt event was born. In 2019, Knott's finally did it. They made a maze based off of the legend. I went through this maze several times and loved it. So much so that it became my number 4, but in the eyes of many others, it became their number 1. Let's start off with the line, because they've obviously factored into my list for the last two mazes I've talked about. I mentioned earlier that only one other maze tried as many things as Waxworks to entertain the guests in a long line, and fittingly, it's Origins. It was fun interacting with all the skill actors, and the town leader on the gallows helped ease the tension caused by the length of the line, but it was just too long with too little interactions. The third thing they had to entertain us while waiting was the projections of the shadows on the buildings, but they usually lasted about 20 seconds before stopping and starting up again a minute later in a loop. However, once you enter the maze itself, you were in for the thrill ride of a lifetime. The skill actors were dedicated beyond belief. The first night I went, I was walking out of the park at 1:59 a.m., just 1 minute from closing, and I saw that Origins only had a 30-second line, and they were still letting guests into it. So I capitalized on the opportunity and went in a second time. Then something amazing happened, no pun intended this time. The skill actors actually skilled me more and worse at 2 a.m. than they did 5 hours earlier. They kept that dedication up for the rest of the season. I also need to bring up this one time when I was walking through the room with the demon baby. In that room they had a lightning effect go off. The baby's mother was coming after me, but she was still the entire room away. Suddenly the lightning struck and it blended into her face that she practically vanished. Half a second later she was in my face and I nearly jumped all the way to the ceiling. The use of technology in this maze was top notch. Anytime the people saw a chance to add more technology into this maze about the Old West, they did, and somehow got it to fit into the story. There was actually a part of the maze where drops of water would fall on you, and it seemed like you were outside while it was raining. Also, portraits of Sarah Marshall screaming at you would make even the Disney Imagineers of the Haunted Mansion a little jealous. Speaking of Sarah Marshall, let's talk about the parts of her legend they added in. Besides her, they also had the Catawampus, which was a dream come true for longtime Knott's fans, and the maze featured cameos from the Bride of Ghost Town, as well as that Minotaur-like monster guy. Sorry, I don't know what he's actually called, but I do know he's an iconic figure on Ghost Town streets. There was a brief moment in time when Origins managed to surpass Waxworks for the number 2 spot on my list. However, Waxworks managed to own that spot back, and then Shadowlands slipped past Origins on the very last week. My only critiques about the actual maze itself is it just didn't stay as consistently intense with each passing visit as my top 3 did. My biggest complaint about the maze is that I didn't really understand how the majority of the maze is depicted as being in a desert of an Old West town, but then all of a sudden you're in a forest. That was the only confusing part for me, but I still love this maze nonetheless. Origins wins 2 trophies. First, it wins the best intro award because the town leader on the gallows telling you to hunt down Sarah Marshall and then you enter the maze and actually begin the hunt is so smooth and well put together. The second trophy Origins wins is the best story award, and if you need my reasoning as to why, then just play back this entire section about the maze again. Finally, to Sarah Marshall herself. I dare you to use your magic to bring in new mazes each year whose stories actually tell the story of their skill zones just like Origins did. Because let's face it everyone, Forsaken Lake desperately needs at least one maze for itself. The next number I put out of my hat is 7. Actually, this is a maze that I feel is underrated regardless. Because I love this maze. It wasn't the best, but it wasn't the worst. To be honest, I think this maze had the best atmosphere at the entire event. Because I actually felt like I was Isaac Clarke fighting my way through the Ishimura. That's right, number 7 goes to Dark Entities. I've heard other YouTubers talk about how this maze just doesn't appeal to them like it should, or call it coney, but I beg to differ. I think this maze does its job and does it well. I think the skill actors have heard these opinions too, and decided to prove themselves to the other YouTubers as well, because they were extremely dedicated. The best part about Dark Entities is definitely the atmosphere. I truly felt confined in a realm where the darkness is absolute, and the creatures it housed were unstoppable. Most of the props in this maze were used to their full potential. For instance, the prop of the human being empowered by parts of the spaceship was perfect. Also, when you see the hand pads throughout the maze, place your hand on them. They will sometimes light up and do stuff. Sadly, they didn't always work, so hopefully Knott can correct that problem for the coming season. Some props were out of place, at least in my opinion. For instance, some of the control panels weren't directly connected to the wall, leaving some space for monsters to squeeze through for a jump scare, and I feel like that was unrealistic. My biggest complaint for Dark Entities is that I don't think they use enough of the Dark Entities or their victims in their full forms. Like, this is supposed to be a Dead Space-like maze where human bodies get rearranged into something more monstrous, but there was just too many victims who only had a large gash somewhere on their body and screamed something at me, and not enough actual aliens and completely transformed humans attacking me. Perhaps I just thought this maze was supposed to be completely inspired by Dead Space, and that got my hopes up too much, but all I'm saying is, for this maze in particular, that's what I'm looking for. So I say, do it. Go full on Dead Space. In fact, take the laser gun idea from Special Ops, change the guns into something like plasma cutters, change the story up a little, and call it Dark Entities Infected Shroud, or maybe even Dark Entities Infected Oath. Well, I believe I've stated it twice now, but Dark Entity's atmosphere was incredible. So incredible, in fact, that I'm voting the best atmosphere award to it. I have a little story to tell you guys. You see, I live over 100 miles away from Knott, and to get there, the fastest route for me involves going through the horrendous traffic of Los Angeles. I spent hours in traffic, and when I made it to the event, it had already been going on for an hour and a half. I panicked because I wanted to go through every maze the first night I went. Sure, I had the annual pass, but I would have felt empty for an entire week after if I didn't do every maze. Luckily, some of the YouTubers I watched, Fractured Compass Productions, told me that Pumpkin Eater would have a small line throughout the night, and it was right next to the entrance. So I made a hard right and walked right into Pumpkin Eater. You know what? I had a blast. There was a 4 to 5 room stretch where the monsters came after me hard. I actually felt uneasy, but when I walked out of the maze, I was pumped up and happy. My love of Halloween had been shifted into maximum overdrive, and I owed it to the skill actors in Pumpkin Eater. They set the standards for what the rest of the skill actors and the other mazes had to work for in my eyes for the rest of the season. Other than that, things just got really ominous. There was so much going on in this maze and so many different monsters to encounter. You go from encountering demented humans with pumpkin faces who were scary in their own right, to fighting off giant bugs, cone monsters, the Pumpkin Eater himself, and worst of all, the smell of latex. Seriously, I hate that smell with all my heart. The darkness of the maze really contributed to how unsettling it was. I had to look all around me continuously in every room to see where all the monsters were coming from because of how dark it was and how many things they could hide behind. The soundtrack for this maze just wouldn't let up. There's so many freaky and disturbing sounds that seem to haunt you forever. I can still just imagine them and feel disturbed. Now, I do think the finale could be stronger, and I do think the intensity of the maze wasn't always there. Also, I'm having a hard time understanding the story. Like, it seems like you're stuck in a grim fairy tale book, but at the same time, it could be the Middle Ages, or maybe it can also be you having a terrifying adventure on an Amish farm, but it's too unclear to me. All I know is there's some creature called Pumpkin Eater who wants me for dinner with a side of pumpkin, but that's all I can decipher from it. Then again, maybe that adds to how unsettling the maze is. Whatever the case, I'm so happy Pumpkin Eater is coming back. It's a fun maze to go through with some flaws, but not enough for me to not feel excited when I'm going through it. Pumpkin Eater wins the most unsettling award for the 2019 season. I've paid my dues, time after time. I've done my sentence, but committed no crime. And bad mistakes, I've made a few. I've had my share of sand kicked in my face, but I've come through. We are the champions, my friends, and we'll keep on fighting till the end. We are the champions, we are the champions. No time for losers, 'cause we are the champions of Not Scary Farm. I hope I explained this part correctly, because I have a lot to say. This is it, everyone. My number one, and a maze that will live on in my heart forever. I'm recoding this in 2020, so there's a chance Scary Farm may not win this year, but whether it does or doesn't, I plan on working in this maze before or during its coding call. If you played along and eliminated all the mazes, then you should already know what it is. I'm not saying that this maze is untouchable. It can be beat in future seasons and be replaced as my number one, but for now, this maze, its story, its props, and most importantly, its skill actors and creators have earned their title as champion, at least in my mind. Without further ado, my favorite maze of Not Scary Farm 2019 belongs to Paranormal Inc. I really hope some of you guys guessed that just by seeing the thumbnail. Oh man, I just have so much to say about this maze, and I don't even know where to begin. I guess I'll start off with the skill actors. They were my favorite of the entire event. Now, I'm not bashing on any skill actors from any other maze. I understand so many factors go into it, but with Paranormal Inc., it seemed like those factors were non-existent. Every time I went through, there was an army of skill actors coming at me from everywhere in every room, including the ceiling. The flippin' ceilings! They had ghosts coming after me. They had possessed humans coming after me, as well as being tortured by the ghosts. They have the amazing opening sequence with that first ghost, I believe her name is Emily, flying across the room. They had a stilt walker dressed in all black hiding against the wall in a pitch black room who popped out at me, and that was the only time during the entire season where I legitimately screamed in fear at the top of my lungs while freezing up and almost falling over as a result. There was one time where I was walking through the hallway with the red light shining in my face, and the people in front of me stalled for a few seconds, so I looked around and stared into a mirror. And one of the ghosts hiding in that hallway didn't even jump scare me, but instead, slowly and smoothly appeared at my side as I watched his reflection reveal what was about to happen to me. Then, I turned to them, and they attacked. This was the only maze with plots like that allowed the skill actors to scare me like that. And speaking of props, let's talk about them. So many things were used to create the atmosphere, from the mirrors to the wheelchair to the sheets to the book writing itself that you will see if you go left at the beginning to the finale where they have the flippin' walls disappear and reveal a giant demon face coming to get you. The first time I went through that maze, I blew through the hallway not thinking, then had to stop and go back and watch the effect play out because I saw it for the first time out of the corner of my eye at the last second. Then I heard someone laughing and turned back to see that my reaction had caused the nose to break character and completely lose herself in laughter. That made me feel welcome in that maze. Yes, I know it sounds weird because why would I want to feel welcomed in a haunted maze, but somehow Paranormal Inc. managed to make me feel welcome and managed to make me realize that somehow I liked being welcomed in a haunted maze. That feeling of being welcomed went both ways too, because one time I went through it and I was last in line, so one of those ghosts in the first room kept coming and scaring me, that I had to stop, point at him, and happily say, "Okay, you're dedicated," and he put his hand over his heart and nodded his head like I had just awarded him the Nobel Prize. That's such a memorable moment. And continuing on with the monsters, they're by far the scariest of the entire event. The only other time you seem to be fighting ghosts at Knott is in Shadowlands, but as I stated earlier, you're in purgatory with them. You're already dead, so what can they do? In Paranormal Inc., on the other hand, you're a vulnerable living human, and you're being haunted, and haunted with an A, by an army of ghosts with no way out. Literally, no way out, because at the ending, just when it seems like you may have survived, the ghosts send you back in time. I'm not giving any opinion on what might be worse, because would you rather have a ghost kill you, or send you back in time with no hope of returning and seeing your family and friends again? Oh man, this maze, everyone. Well, I tried to do it with all the others, so I'll try to do it here and find a flaw with Paranormal Inc. And the only thing I can think of, the only one very extremely extraordinarily supercalifragilisticexpialidociously small blemish on an otherwise perfect resume is that the line outside didn't have that many things to entertain us while we waited in line for usually only half an hour at the least to hardly 45 minutes at the most, and maybe an hour once in a blue moon. That's really it. The line is the minor inconvenience that holds Paranormal Inc. back from being a perfect 10 out of 10 to me. If the line would have been just slightly more entertaining, then it would have been perfect, but I love the maze so much that one day I may just say, screw it, it's a perfect 10 out of 10. Whenever Not Scary Farm returns, this is the maze I want to work in for my first year at least. I want to be part of its legacy. That's the greatest statement I can make for my first ever favorite maze at Not Scary Farm. Finally, the trophies. Paranormal won 4 trophies total in my book. It won the awards for consistency, best skills, best use of props, and best kind of monsters in a maze. Well, that's it everyone. Technically, this was the first video I made for this channel, so I hope you enjoyed. I do plan on making ranking videos on Knott's mazes annually, and I plan on making more videos about Knott, Universal's Halloween Horror Nights, Disneyland Halloween events, and just about any other topic based on Halloween, since that is what this channel is about. So if any of that is anything you're a fan of, then please like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to live every day as if it were Halloween.